All right, we are here in Mobile, Alabama today, and we're at Gulf Distributing, just adjacent to downtown Mobile, and we are going to have a great conversation today here on Pallets to Pints. So I'm joined by Cam Koorangi today, who's the Director of Enterprise Solutions. Cam and I have shared some similar paths and our journey through our few decades in the beer industry, and we're gonna have a great conversation today about all things technology and a little bit of enterprise solution conversation. So let's cheers and kick this off.
Cheers, brother.
Awesome. So Cam, let's give the audience a little bit of who is Cam? We know you started here. Talk a little bit about that, a little bit of your journey, and then what full circle brought you back to Gulf Distributing a few years down the line after that?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, thank you for having me. I think it's really cool what you all are doing with this podcast at Rehrig Pacific. Yeah, my story's a little unconventional. I did start here at Gulf about 20 years ago. Started off on a DSD route, had about every, position that you can think of, from, warehouse to sales to management. Spent about a decade learning the industry, right? And then I was able to branch off a little bit and learn a lot about software. So I helped a couple of companies get up and running. CPG Data, I Sell Beer being one of those with Tracy Neal, as well as Encompass, kind of went over there to help them develop their e-commerce platform. That was really exciting. That allowed me the opportunity to really kind of see what different wholesalers were doing outside of my own tunnel vision when I was here at Gulf. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about how, software companies operated, their mindset, their priorities. I learned a lot about, the challenges that wholesalers deal with across the country as well. What brought me back was unfinished business. I felt like I had, left the company on great terms, went and developed my skill set, learned a lot about what was going on in the market, and I was really excited about the opportunity to be able to come back and put some of those learnings into action to see what we could really accomplish here in Mobile.
So you talk a little bit about unfinished business. What was the opportunity that you saw in terms of how you think about leading technology for Gulf?
That's a good question. When I think about leading technology, I think about people first. I think about, a lot of people think that technology is going to solve their problems. And if they implement a new technology, it's going to magically make everything better. I've tried that. I've been there. I've learned that that's not completely true. So when I think about, moving technology forward in the industry, I think of people first. How are we going to create ambassadors throughout the company? How are we going to educate them, train them on what's going on, and motivate them to want to move forward? We've been behind the technology for a long time in this industry. I think we have a long way to go to get to where we need to be, but we're not going to be able to do that without the buy-in from our people, from the education, that we provide to our people, and the communication to allow them to understand why we're making the decisions that we're making.
Yeah, like we know, like you all have multiple operations across a couple of different states, and one of the important things is the alignment of technology across the multiple organizations within the Gulf business. How do you look at that, and how do you manage the complexity of what takes place when you're thinking about technology?
It's not easy, right? I mean, because we're a company that has, we're a family-owned company that's kind of grown by acquiring other family-owned operations, and in the local environments, everybody has their way of doing things. They're used to doing things a certain way. It worked for them for 20 years. As a larger company, as an entity, we would like to standardize things. That makes it tough. You have to find a balance between standardization that works while understanding the nuances of each of the different locations and allowing them to be flexible in certain manners, but bringing it all together, in a view that makes sense for the total company. So it's really just more about working with the people to create understanding of what we're doing, and then forcing the technology through the system, which sounds rough, but it's not bad as long as the communication's there and the training's there.
Often I call this kind of like developing in an agile way, and that can kind of mean a lot of different things, but there's operational realities. Yep. And what you have to build for. So how do you work internally, or as you look at vendors in terms of managing expectations internally and how things come together?
We try to get people involved early. It would be easy for leadership to sit in a room and make decisions based off of some good conversations with our vendors, right? But what our approach is get the people that are in the field, in the real world, involved in the conversations early and often, let them be a part of it and allow them to help make decisions because their feedback is vital in how we're going to move forward. So I think it serves two purposes, right? When you get the people that are doing the real work in the real world involved early, you get their feedback. If you pay attention to it, it'll allow you to make better decisions for yourself. But what you're also doing is creating champions in the market that are already bought into what you're trying to accomplish, and it makes the process of adoption a lot easier.
Change management's tough, right? But and at the end user, you have to have buy-in from the top down, but you have to also start from the bottom and work your way up, right? Because you have to build to the people who are using it on the day-to-day basis. And so when we first met, you were at Encompass, and I was a strategic partner and also a competitor. And we've shared stages together, had a lot of laughs, had a lot of good times together as competitors and partners. How has that shaped your understanding of technology within the industry and how you assess and look at different vendors, having been at a company like Encompass and sort of seeing kind of all sides of it throughout the three-tier system?
Yeah, those were fun times. The e-commerce explosion back in the early 2000s was pretty wild. And it was, you can say, yes, we did compete. We were competitors in one aspect, but we were also partners in another aspect. And I think what we realized is that we weren't necessarily competing with each other as much as we were competing against friction in the industry. Just the old school way of inputting orders or change management issues that you might be dealing with at the retail, or tough conversations at retail, rather, change management internally with the sales team, et cetera, et cetera. It allowed me to see how the vendors thought. It allowed me to see how technology companies operate. Allowed me to see how they prioritize things and how they actually develop their roadmaps, and how, anything on a roadmap could truly mean like 3 months or 3 years. So putting that into perspective, I think it's allowed me to understand, what we need internally as a wholesaler, but also how the software companies or vendors or technology vendors operate in a way that makes me ask different questions than I think most people probably ask, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've both seen some modernization fail and some succeed. Sometimes it comes down to those timelines that just don't line up, and people can't stomach sprint releases and roadmaps of products and different things like that. But from your perspective, what makes something like B2B work in this industry?
Change management. You're going to get tired of hearing me say that word, but I think it's probably the most important thing that anybody can undertake when it comes to transformation, especially with technology. This industry is old. It's been around for a long time. There's a lot of family-owned operations that, have been involved in this industry for a long time. And there's a lot of, people that have been here for a while doing things a certain way. Like I said earlier, I think it's extremely important to figure out a way to communicate with a team in such a way that they understand what you're trying to accomplish, how it impacts them. A lot of times when people adopt new software, they think the 1 or 2 week training session that they've had is good enough. It's not, right? Change management's ongoing, it's constant reinforcement. And you have to make sure that everybody's on the same page and bought in, because the old adage of like one spoiled apple ruins the bunch is very true, especially when it comes to, the most important people in our organization, which are our salespeople, our drivers, and our warehouse crew, right? They're a very tight-knit group of people, and we want them to all be on the same page and communicating, positively. Like I said earlier, technology is a solution, but it's not the solution, right? People adopting technology is the solution. So if we can't find a way to make it work for our people, or if the technology is adding more work to our people, or if our people continue to find workarounds for the new technology that we've developed. If I see spreadsheets, I'm done.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's my biggest indicator that something is not working. Shadow spreadsheets, we have a million of them today, right? Every single department that I talk to when I'm trying to troubleshoot, what's going on is, oh, we've got this spreadsheet. And I'm like, well, why do we have a spreadsheet? Why can't the core system take care of this, right? And it's because it can't, or because we weren't trained properly on what the capabilities were, or we haven't trained ourselves internally. And those are the things that I'm trying to get away from. If I could never look at a spreadsheet again, we'd be in a dream spot.
So, Gulf Distributing has a pretty robust tech stack, and it's clear that the organization is innovative at its core and with the employee central in mind, right? When you look at scaling technology across the different locations, they all behave a little bit differently, different things like that. But what are the key important details that you're looking for when you're assessing technology vendors, and what's important to Gulf that helps you drive towards the decision that you're making on, all the various options out there for technology and what you move forward with?
From a vendor standpoint, first of all, capabilities. I mean, we're gonna do our due diligence to see if the product does what we want it to do, right? But I'm not looking always for the most hyped software in the industry. I'm looking for the best partnership. And for me, when we think about who we want to work with, it's the people that are going to try to understand our business. You guys are great. I mean, we call you, you're available all the time. So things like that. We've been in situations in the past where we don't feel like we've been prioritized, right? So we're a very innovative company that's trying to move the industry forward. We're very confident in our ability to do that with the correct partnerships. I'd also say that, we look at the willingness for different vendors to be a part of our organization and work with our team on a consistent basis. We've had some vendors come in and do a launch and, we don't hear from them for 3 or 6 months.
Yeah,
outside of email, right? It's
Yep.
Hey, good luck, have fun. We sold you, a cool product. You can figure it out yourself. We've got other vendors that come in and spend weeks at a time with us. They make sure that, the key roles that are within our organization really have a good grasp of what's going on. Those are who we want to work with. I mean, the product itself could, be a little bit less capable than another company potentially, but if the partnership's there, I think we'll work together for a greater good and make it work for both of us.
Build the plane while it's flying, right?
Well,
you partner on that.
Yeah, you have to, right? Like if you're going to wait and build the plane while it's on the ground and then test it to fly, what if it still crashes?
Yeah.
Right. So you have to move and pivot and iterate quickly, in my opinion. They again, to use an old adage, like the enemy of greatness is trying to be perfect, right?
Yeah.
So like sometimes you just have to move forward and adjust and fail and fall and get back up and try again. And know that you're not going to get everything right the first time.
What are some challenges that you're currently facing and looking at to solve? Like what's on your desk? What are you working on?
Well, I think that one of my main roles is to aggregate since we're talking about vendors and technology moving forward, I want to aggregate our vendor list, right? And understand it a little bit better. I think we have a lot of stuff going on with a lot of different partners. There's a lot of adjacencies. There's a lot of overlap. And you said something earlier, we do have a very robust tech stack. I do not think that the people with the most systems win.
Mm-hmm.
I think the people with the most effective systems that are consolidated into a usable platform win. And I know that's a lot of words, but what I mean by that is, in my opinion, I would rather have less software.
Mm-hmm.
If 3 or 4 companies could partner with us and make everything work, that would be beautiful. It's more about the system cohesively working with our people and the ability for our partners to work with our people to train them on the systems to make sure that we're effective out in the market. Because at the end of the day, the most important thing for us is servicing our retailers. That's how we keep the lights on. If we have a vendor that gives us more data to look at that is just extra work, that's just extra noise. We're looking for automation. We're looking for things that make us more efficient and effective in the market. We're looking for shortcuts, right?
Yeah, when you think about ROI, so you've assessed a vendor, you've partnered together, or you become a customer. And now we're walking and rolling, similar to where we're at now, right? We're a few months in after implementation here. We've been in Birmingham since the middle of last summer. What's important from an ROI perspective? Like, what are you focused on as part of that equation? As you're the IT guy, but you're the commercial facing IT guy, right? Like, and so how does that come together for you? What are the important pieces of the pie that have to come together to validate, assumptions that were made and that things are driving value?
I've said it a few times, but it always boils down to people for me. When technology can and will drive ROI if the people are bought into it and they're using it properly, I'm looking for time savings, task reduction, automation. When it comes to Rehrig specifically, how is the warehouse improving when it comes to picking? The duo jacks are unbelievable, right? Like we just launched in Montgomery this past week, and the guys, I was watching the training, and I used to do this, so this is coming from somebody that's had lots of experience pushing a cart through a parking lot and just rattling, right? Like it's the most annoying thing in the world. Trying to keep the door open, pushing it over the threshold, all these different nightmare situations, and then you've got this beautiful machine that does the hard work for you. And then seeing our guys go through the obstacle course, and of course, like some of them, at first challenged, new piece of equipment, they're a little bit hesitant, but then we had some that were just ripping through it. I mean, just killing it. And in my mind, I'm just like, this is it. This is going to make their lives easier. Not only is it a cool tool that gets them through the store and allows them to kind of manage their product better, but it's going to save their backs. It's going to save their legs. They're not going to be as tired when they get home at night, right? Those are the kind of solutions we're looking for. At the end of the day, we're really trying to find partners that are going to make the people that, do the hard work for us lives easier and more efficient.
Well, it's crazy because we were out on a ride along with a driver yesterday in the market, a little 15 minutes west of here. And we pulled up to the real world example, a very tight liquor store in terms of getting in and out of aisle space. And it was just, and lots of back stock, lots of product everywhere. And the driver seamlessly, not a shameless plug, but the driver moved the Duo right through the store while another vendor had a four-wheeler on its side with like 20 cases of product on it. And I ended up helping him put his product in the store just to kind of help get him out of the way. But it was really neat to see that difference in somebody who struggled to get a piece of equipment into a store, or right in the past, which we're trying to influence, down stacking product outside. It was raining all morning. That product gets damaged, all that stuff. That's just an additional cost for you guys as it is. So, I always tell the story about throwing cases off a side loader for years. And it's so neat what is capable nowadays and how things are tracked and the behavior of the equipment and different things like that. So, what are you interested in doing with data that's collected at the point of delivery?
Anything and everything, right? Market share is always important to us. As far as, pertains to delivery, how long does it take to service an account? That's a measure that everybody has been talking about for 20 years, but I don't think anybody's ever got their mind wrapped around it.
Or the wasted time, right?
Exactly. And I think we're getting close, and a lot of it is attributed to some of the tools that you've given us, right? But we're getting closer and closer to being able to understand that, because we really want to understand like what the workable hours are in the market and how we can manage our teams, because we don't want them working 16-hour days. We want them working normal hours. We want them to be able to kind of manage their schedules to a certain extent. We want them to be happy and healthy, but a lot of times we don't know what we don't know. So we get stuck in situations to where things don't go the way they were planned, and it's because of lack of data. It's because of lack of information. And I think the data that we receive from vendors like you and some of the other great ones that we have out there will allow us over time to kind of aggregate and consolidate that information and put some really good analytics out there so that we can be proactive versus reactive. Because right now, there's just a lot of like reactionary movements when it comes to delivery, specifically. So,
what do you think? If we look ahead, what's going to be the differentiator between a beer distributor or an organization like Gulf that forges ahead and is successful versus an organization that sort of struggles and falls behind? What do you think are some of those key differentiators in the industry that people should recognize and understand?
Speed of learning is one. So the wholesalers that are out there that are willing to talk to different vendors that they haven't talked to over the years and kind of figure out what the, modern opportunities are. Because a lot of us wholesalers just get stuck in the way that we've always done things. We're not like that. We like to move forward and kind of push the envelope a little bit. The technology/talent paradox is always going to be something that needs to be focused on. And what I mean by that is kind of what I've been talking about throughout this conversation around what's more important, the technology or the people. Well, you have to have both. You have to find a way to allow technology to meet people where they are. So you train the people on the technology, you use the technology for what it is to accomplish your goals, but you have to have both, right? And I think that a lot of times people force technology and don't train the people properly. So if you can figure out that dichotomy and make it work, that's going to be successful. And I'll give you a third one, just over communicate everything, right? Communication. It's not, you can't send an email out and expect somebody 400 miles away to remember what you said and adopt and do that. So communication.
Yeah, a little while ago, Rebecca Mizell made a comment where she just said, something along the lines of, just because you've always done something a particular way doesn't mean you have to do it that way in the future.
That's right.
And I largely think that's like a definition to some degree of what's been a struggle of adoption for technology in the industry. But you're starting to see the gears turn, and you're starting to see organizations grasp onto it a little bit more and think, oh, there's value here. And it's about like the human potential, right? Like augmenting the human potential and the people and different things like that. Kind of on a last note, your role today. So you were at Gulf, ventured away, learned a lot. I was similar path as well, right? Now you're back here. We talked about the opportunity you had. Define your role today and how you think about what you do?
Like I said, unfinished business, right? So when I think about that, I take all the learnings that I had with my time at, I Sell Beer, with my time at Encompass, and all of the, 150 plus wholesalers that I was able to work with there, the best practices. And so my goal now in my Director of Enterprise Solutions role with Gulf is to basically take the data, the technology, and the people and blend them all together, figure out how to make it work, create standardizations across the different locations, make sure everybody knows what the heck is going on, right? And also explain the value of why we're doing things. As you know, communication is the downfall of a lot of things. And if there's not somebody that stays on top of the project management aspect, the communication aspect with the employees, the reasoning behind why we're doing things, then most of the time the adoption is lower than you'd like it to be. So my role really is to maximize the effort of all of our vendor relationships out there, making sure that every single person in this entire organization is using every tool at its peak benefit, right? And then, we're rocking and rolling. Everybody's happy. They understand everything. And they're just kicking ass in the market.
So you're just supposed to make people happy.
Or,
or make sure they're leveraging.
The real answer to that is I make them upset first because nobody likes change.
Yep.
And then I make them happy because they're like, oh, this actually was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Funny how technology has that impact.
Exactly.
What piece of advice do you give to somebody in a similar role like yours throughout this industry that's leading technology or innovation for their organization or companies who aren't even thinking about it?
Find your champions. If you're a multi-location operation like we are, find your champions by location because they'll act as your ambassadors. Keep them in the loop on anything that you're trying to do moving forward. Talk to as many vendors as you can. Not that you have to entertain them, but you need to know what's going on out there. Like, it's a healthy mindset to understand what the opportunities are. And I would say, stay ahead of the curve when it comes to technology, not because we're going to try to, remove everything or automate everything, but if we can take the simple task away from our sales teams and our delivery teams and our merchandisers, then they can become way more effective in the market, because then we turn them back into consultants, right? Then we turn them into people that are able to focus on the 80-20 principle. And I think everybody, knows what I'm talking about there. But yeah, I just keep your eyes and ears open and leverage people and find a way to make technology work for them, not the other way around.
No, that's well said. It's number one, it's great to be spending time with you again. We spent a lot of time together a few years ago, then there was a little gap, and then full circle, here we are, right? It's kind of, it's fun to get to do things. I know we'll be working closely together. We have some more work to do together. Lots of people across many teams involved. And so thank you for that. And thank you for the time today. Really appreciate everything you shared and for the hospitality here. It's just such an incredible experience. And you mentioned earlier, like when you think about vendors, kind of integrating into your organization. And I think that's a powerful and important piece. Like I've always used the term, like you want to become a piece of, like, part of the fabric of your customer's organization, because then they trust you and you build that trust and all that good stuff. So I know we're headed down that path, and we're having a lot of fun doing it, kicking ass and solving problems together, and there's a lot more to do. So with that, I want to choose you, my friend. I look forward to the future, and thanks for your time today.
Thank you, guys.
This has been Pallets to Pints here in Mobile, Alabama. We'll see you again next time.